So this session is around debtors, okay, and I'll take you through the process of debtors. So the first thing we do is we click on the module Debtors and Debtor Maintenance. Within every maintenance space of Synergetic, when you click on a module, you'll get a search criteria. So in future, when you're searching for parents, you might search by the surname, you might know what their ID is, you might have a tagged list, so a list of debtors that you're looking for in particular, and we'll talk about tagged lists. Or you might want to do something like a statement group. Now, you've got one statement group at the moment, but you may choose in future to have more than one statement group. For example, you might have a statement group of bad debtors or slow payers or people that pay by direct debit. These are different ways of grouping your debtors that allows you to sort of manipulate those lists. You can also then pull off, for example, if you had a group of parents in a statement group of slow payers, you can do a trial balance on that. You can report on those statement groups. So sometimes that becomes more important, but as you work through it, and when we go to live, we'll also talk about, okay, so what decisions have you made, and make sure they're set up. All of these lists, a lot of these lists with the little down arrow, they are what we call lookup tables, and a lot of them are modifiable by your school. So we can customise those lists, show you how to set them up, and then you can continue that work. Okay. So in future we might look for a statement group of slow payers or you might have sundry debtors, people that interact with your school that don't have students.
So they'd be in that.
They would still have a community record and they would be a debtor, so they would appear under this module.
In a statement group.
But we could put them in a statement group of sundry debtors, say. Okay. So just for now, let's click on OK. And let's have a look at Synergetic. So when you click on OK, that means I want to bring everybody to the grid. And what I mean by grid is this list here. Now wherever you have a grid as a part of Synergetic, if you right mouse click, if you put your mouse anywhere in this list here, and click your right mouse button, you'll see that we have the ability to copy the grid contents to Excel. So over time, as you're working with different parts of Synergetic, it may be of use to you to be able to dump everything that is in this grid into Excel and play with it. But right now, just to know that it's there, okay, so it might be, for example, you've brought through your slow payers statement group and you want to dump the information out into Excel and you want to do some manipulation, you can do that. Okay? But it's just going to take the information that's currently in the grid. So it might have some hidden columns. It's not going to bring everything through. Okay. Now, with Synergetic, if you come into a screen and can I just have a look at your screens, what that's looking like? Yep, okay, yep, okay. Can you see how the grid is overlapping the detail page? So this grid here on the left-hand side, I can see from some of your screens that it's sort of overlapping a bit like that. Would that be right? Okay. So the way to fix that is Control, Shift and M. And the system will resize your screen, your windows to your screen. So if you like that look, sorry, is yours right?
Yeah. No, I just tapped on the family and it made it control size itself. It was overlapped and I just tapped it.
Okay, that's good. To keep, if you like this, that's, yep. Yeah. So if you like that of most screens within Synergetic. If you like that look, using your mouse, go up to the word File in that top left-hand corner, and about halfway down you'll see Save Form, Size and Position. Okay, so when we click on that and hit OK, every time we come into debtor maintenance, it's going to bring that up in a large format, or it's going to. Sorry.
What was that one under?
Yep, it's under File, and about halfway down you've got Save Form, Size and Position.
Thank you.
So this might work for you. Depends on how many windows you've got open.
Once you've done that, you don't have to do it again.
No, you don't. Every time you come into data maintenance, now it will pop up like this. This is something that is user. Now I remember. So because we're all logged in as trained fin, once one person did it, it happened for everybody. These are the sorts of things that you can do under your login when you get your login, and you'll set your screens to look the way you want to. Okay? So that's why it works like that. Okay. With these tabs at the top here, these little tabs up the top, we also have the ability to customize those tabs at the top. We can color code them, we can move, so we can, let's say I want debtor and I want to color code it to red, because every time I come into this area, I want my eye drawn to it. Now that should show up on your.
Where did you go?
That's okay. So up the top, we've got a red down arrow above, like this little tabs icon there. Click on that. And if I want to make my outstanding tab sit out for me, I can click on this little sort of TV icon up the top. And I might make that one green. Click OK, and there's my two coloured tabs. Now, because we're all logged in as trained fin, when you do this, it will change it for everyone. Okay, so that at the moment is the way it looks under trained fin. Are you getting that on your screens? Yep. Okay. But when you log in as yourself, if this is what you want to do, these are the sorts of little things that you can do.
Is yours colours? Have you got colours now?
It's colours when you look at it, but not on the actual tabs. But if you look at it in your here, it says that it's there.
Yeah. And okay.
Oh, okay. And now it's there.
Someone's done that.
Yeah,
that's because we're all logged in as one.
Because you're all logged in as one.
Yeah.
So when you hit OK, it should update for you. Yeah. Okay. So it's just a little bit about how you can customize the look once you're using your own login there. Okay. So the other thing is, if you're going into different screens, you can also hide those tabs as well. So if you're in finance and you're needing to go into the student space, there's a whole heap of tabs in the student space. You might want to just, if you're giving security access to all of those tabs, you might want to just hide some of those tabs, but we'll cover that. Okay, so the key tabs that we'll go through for this. So we've done our search criteria. The key tabs we're going to look at are your auto payments. Now, auto payments is looking at your automatic payment schedule. So if you've got people that are paying by direct debit,
Okay.
Yes, we do.
yep. Would you like to give me a name of someone who's on direct debit? Can you think?
Cotton, Cotton.
Okay. So if we want to find the Cotton family, we've got everybody brought to the grid. So what we can do is up on the left-hand side, see how we've got surname or ID in the grid. Just type in Cotton.
And
Okay. C-O-E-N. Okay. So that's the Cotton family. Now it looks like automatic payments hasn't come through.
Well, no,
But
the way that we do it is
uh-huh.
I have a list in Excel of who to direct debit each week, and we just do a manual, have a template in CBA with our internet banking, and then we do it that way. So it's not automated in Maze either. So I'm interested to know how to do it in an automated way.
Absolutely. So if we look at this one in particular, all right, so what would can you remember what their payment would be, what their arrangement would be?
It'd be $300 a week, so we would look that up on their transaction history to see that it's been done, rather than generating it through our current.
Okay, so if I wanted to set up this family with a fixed amount of $300 a week, I would put in here the method, the method of fixed amount, the amount of 300, the frequency would be weekly, and whenever the next date's going to be. What would be the next?
Weekly.
Yep, so that's weekly. So what
Would it be
day
on
of the week?
Friday?
On the Friday? Okay. Is that arrangement an ongoing arrangement that doesn't stop? I'm just showing you up on the big screen at the moment.
Okay.
Yep. So it's ongoing. Okay. Some schools like to limit it to each year, or their forms that they've got from the parents are only for that particular year. A lot of schools just have them, okay, until you tell us to stop, we will continue doing this. So it just depends on what your forms say. But what I'm setting up here is the fixed amount of $300 per week for this family. The method of that payment, I click on add, and down in here I can put in by bank or by credit card.
Sweet.
Okay, so let's just for argument's sake today, let's put in EFT. Oh, well, I've put in EFT, but yep, okay, and I'm just going to do 30808. So this is a dummy transaction. It's not going to do anything. But in the real world, we would have their BSBN, their account details, okay? We are then able to run our electronic banking process, and it will grab everyone that's got an automatic payment up to and including the next date, and it will create a file that you can then upload to the bank.
Wow.
Okay?
But when you have someone who might call and say, so we set all these up, and then you might have the occasion when someone calls and says, I need to suspend my payment for 1 week.
Yep.
There's a suspension option.
There's a little hold payments button up the top. So the next time you create it, it would not create that transaction for that particular family, but then you'd need to come back in and manipulate the amount, the fixed amount. So you do need to, but you can absolutely do that. So for that particular parent, it would skip it, but it will also tell you which ones it skipped. Okay? We also have what's called a crystal report, which won't show anything at the moment because we haven't got many set up. But the crystal report of debtor automatic payments will tell you who we've got set up. These are the ones that are set up at the moment. Okay, so there are a few in there.
I put them in because we thought that the previous version was going to be able to do it, but we don't do anything with that, so it's all
Okay.
long since.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if we give the information to,
So we need to take
Iris?
that out.
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah,
yeah,
we need to take that out.
well,
Because they're not correct.
no, okay, but if we've got the information on the automatic payments, if
Yeah.
it's in Excel,
Yeah.
he'll be able to bring it through for
So
you.
we need to remove those.
Yeah.
And get the right ones.
So if I was to update them, so we're playing in
You're
Synergetic.
just playing at the moment, yes.
Okay, so it's not something I could.
Not the live Synergetic yet.
No. Okay.
So I've got to wait till August.
So you've got
You
to,
can actually update that in Maze then.
yeah, so you've
To
got
make that down, so
But
I
I just
just
need
do
to
that.
talk
Oh,
to
yeah.
the developers and
Yeah.
find
Yeah,
out what
so-
we need to do that somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the best thing is what's the best thing to do. So if that's populated from Maze
Yeah.
and it's easy to update Maze, then Iris would probably recommend that you update your source data,
So
and then he'll bring it through for you in the source data.
Yeah.
Okay, that's probably the easiest. But these are the sorts of things that we're going to get you to check. Is it there? Is it in the source data to come through? Yes or no? Should it be fixed in the source data so that when we do your live conversion, it's there? So that all of that, you've already had those conversations. Okay, but this is a report that we could run on a weekly basis to say, yep, these are the ones I'm going to take. Okay, this is what it's going to do. And in electronic banking, we create the file to send up to the bank. Who do you bank with?
CBA.
CBA. Okay. Behind the scenes, in our finance configuration, which you may or may not have access to, I'm not sure what your access is doing, but in our banking configuration, for your main, whichever bank account you're going to take put the money into, under bank files, we then have the ability to create the EFT file type, which would be the ABA, and the credit card file type, which would be, sorry, who was it again? So Commonwealth Bank. Okay, so there's settings behind the scenes. So when you run the electronic banking, it's going to do it in a format that the CBA like. Okay, because we've already done that process. And what we will do in live is we will run some tests as well. Okay? Just to make sure everything's good. All right, so I'll just okay that. Keep that there. All right, so automatic payments, we've got that under control. And so what that will do is create that process for you. When you run the electronic banking, it will pull up everyone depending on the frequency. So you can say, I just want to run fixed amounts weekly process. It will create the information. It will also create the posting, so it's all automated, and it will put those receipts onto the parents' accounts. Okay? Once you've done that, it will then update based on the frequency, and the next date it will update it to the next date. So the system automatically does that behind the scenes for you. And it will populate to your receipts page and your history page. There's just converted data at the moment, so there's not a lot there. But it will create that receipt in the parents' account so they can see it straight away.
And
Okay.
that's the same for credit cards, because we have to manually enter all the credit. It's only one at the moment, but there's, because we've been sending people away from that payment format. But so I see you can do the same thing with credit cards.
You can, but the danger is there at the moment that PCI compliance, of PCI compliance. So we do have the product. I'm not sure if, are you going with Community Portal? Yep, okay. So Community Portal linking to finance allows those stored credit cards to be stored on the portal. That flows through to Synergetic. So when you run the credit card electronic banking, you're not keeping the credit card information in Synergetic as a full credit card information. It will come through.
Not just the last 4 digits.
You'll get the first 4 digits, ... and then the last 3 digits. Okay? And so what it will create is a CRN, which the bank knows. So all of that process can be managed.
Only got one.
You've only got one.
Only got that one family.
We should encourage them to
We
look
have,
this
I
up
think
every
we-
single week. They can't do that.
No. I think they're leaving at the end of the year anyway, so I was happy to let it go for this year. Because then that will mean we have no more that way.
So it's a way of handling it. So anyway, so exactly what comes through from the community portal populates here. Your parents can update their details online, depending on at what point you go with that. But also, we have the facility as operators in the background. once we've got it set up, we can click on this edit data. It will take us to that managed stored cards page on the community portal, and we can make the changes on the behalf of the parents. So it's not that we lose that control. We can farm out that process of updating information, but we can also impersonate. Okay? All right. So we've done auto payments. Debtor communications. Debtor communications is where we can keep our information on our communication with the parents. Direct communication, I mean, by that I mean we've got a particular date that we've spoken to them. If we've sent out a letter, if we've got a coded letter, and we can also follow up. So do you have any debtor communications from Maze?
Yeah. So when we deal with a family, every time we split them or whatever, we have notes, which is basically like an open Word document kind of thing, or
That.
notepad kind of thing. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So we just,
So where's that stored now?
So at the moment that's under your comment.
Yeah, right.
Okay, and this is fairly typical of a conversion from Maze because you've got that sort of notes space. But what we would suggest once you're using Synergetic is that you do it by data comms. So we've got here 20th of 3rd 07, statement posted with friendly reminder sticker. Love it. So you might not want to put that in, but it might be chasing up about X. So the data comms becomes more targeted. It's on this date, and I'm following up on that date, and the detail of spoken with Dad. He will pay outstanding by 14 June. Let's say for that example, okay? When I put that in, okay, I've then got the option of continuing to add those interactions, but I can also, in here, I can tick it when it's resolved. So let's say Dad says he's going to pay up by the 14th, and he pays up by the 14th. You can tick that one as he's done what he said he was going to do. In our screen then, over on that far right hand corner, we can say show resolved or not. So when I save this, it'll disappear out of the screen. Or if I want to show the resolved items, I can bring it back. So you can make that screen as busy. Oops. You can make that screen as busy or as clean as you like. The advantage of using data comms is that there is a crystal report that you can pull out all of those interactions. So let's say, for example, you've got to the point where you have to send it to the debt collectors. You can produce that report, or if it's got to go to the board or whatever, you can actually pull out the report, and that shows you all of that interaction.
I just ask you.
Yes.
So when it said follow up and it had a date there,
Mm-hmm.
does Synergetic give you a list of what you should be doing on that date?
It can do. If you've got, are you using Action Centre? Going to be using Action Centre? Okay, yeah. So Action Centre is a tool of sending those reminders to you. So there's a crystal report that you can pull out, absolutely, that will tell you what data comms you've got and what follow-ups. Absolutely, you can do that. Or there is an Action Centre that will send you a reminder of the follow-ups that you were going to do or the tasks you were going to do. Or you can set up an MS query. There's lots of different ways to work within Synergetic and outside Synergetic. So a lot of those, like the crystal reports, they might not look exactly as you want them, or because you've got to run them. So what you can do is you can set yourself up with an MS query. Have you got query knowledge?
We have, but
Yeah.
these guys haven't done the MS query.
No. Yeah. So MS query is looking at different fields within the database and pulling it through in live process. So you can have those sitting in the background. Every time you open it up, it's going to give you what's the information today. So follow-ups with phone numbers and all of that can be sitting there as well. So there's different ways of interacting within Synergetic. Okay? All right. The history then. These at the moment are just converted balances that are coming through. Okay? But over time, this page will have all of the transactions that are on this debtor's account. Okay? So it will build up that information. The receipts page, as you can imagine, is just looking at those receipts that have come in. So history has all charges and receipts. Receipts just looks at receipts and I think they've split that off because people like to email out receipts or ask questions, and so you can preview and then you can also email from there, but you can preview it, it'll come up as a PDF and then you can attach it to an email. But again, if you're looking at the community portal, when parents go onto the portal, they can view their receipts, their statements and their transactions. So that reduces the number of entries and phone calls to the office. Okay. Statements then. The next one we'll look at is statements. So you've got a couple of statements in Synergetic at the moment, a couple of in here. So we can have a preview of that, I think.
Just statement balances.
We'll see what's... There we go. Okay. So this statement is just one of our sort of templates that will be in the background, and so this is going to bring through the converted balances. But at least that shows you what a statement looks like.
Yeah.
Okay. So in debtor maintenance, we can look at those. We can preview those statements, and then we can also email them off. So if someone's ringing up and saying, I didn't get my statement, where is it? We can go in there and look at it and send it through to them. Okay. Splits. Do you allow split payments?
Yes.
You do? I seem to be focusing on I'm just going to change this from the Cotton family. Poor Cotton family. There we go. Although, you may feel differently. I don't know the Cottons. Okay.
Probably wasn't the best example to give you.
No, that's fine, that's fine. So, some schools will say, you and mum and dad, joint and severally liable, we're not interested in any arrangement that you've got, so you work it out, we're going to send you the statements. Other schools will say, we will allow a split payment. So we will allow a 50-50 split or whatever it needs to be. So you do allow those.
Yep. So they nominate the percentage and then we invoice accordingly.
Okay. In Synergetic, what we would do is we would set them up in this space. So if we've got a family that you can think of that we might split, this is where you've got the knowledge.
Yes, I'm just trying to think of one who is easy to...
Is there such a thing?
Davis keeps popping
Yeah,
up.
I know, that's the one I thought of.
That's the one you thought of?
Don't look.
No.
Okay. You'd rather we didn't look at that?
Oh, it's just, yeah, quite complicated. Would be a doozy.
Well, no, we just need to get back to on our data selector. We need to look at everything. So I'm sure if I saw a name.
Yep, so if you go up the top and then change your criteria, just take out cotton. That's what I've done there.
Dad and dad and deputy principal mum here, what's...
No, they're not sorted yet though. That's...
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to look at Davis? Is it Davis?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they've got all kinds of other things going on. They are a split family, but one kid lives here and one kid lives there and...
One of the things we will do in live is we will actually make sure that your split families are set up correctly. Nagel. So that's Nagle. Okay. So Mr. T. Nagel and his ex-partner. It doesn't really matter because I'm going to show you. Sorry? Witten. Would someone like to search for Witten and actually no, we can do that here. All right. So we can split the family. So essentially, what happens within Synergetic, we run the auto tuition. So we run the billing, the charging. Okay. If we have a split arrangement, what will happen is, whatever that arrangement is, the system will look at it. So it might be a 50-50 split, okay? So it will run the auto tuition to the debtor of Mr. Nagel, okay? In here though, we'll have, I want you to send 50% of that charge across to Mrs. Mrs. Nagel, okay? And the system will automatically do that for you. So that's why we do it in live, so we've got all of the setups. But let's do one. Okay, so the fee, let's do, first of all, we need to find the debtor. So we want to find, click on find, and we want, can you remember what was the surname again? Witten? W-H-I-T-T. Okay, so Ms. T. Witten. Okay, so Ms. T. Witten is going to pay 50% of the fees, and that's how I set it up. So I'm going to save that. So when I look at this record, it tells me that Mr. Nagel is paying 50%. Ms. Witten is also paying 50%. So when we go to see Ms. Witten's, I'm just going to take this one. Take that right side. And I'll just go to Miss Witten. Okay. I'm just going to tag Miss Witten as well. And then I'm going to change my IDs. I'm just going to bring through the tagged IDs. So we've just got these two to show. So we've got Mr. Nagel sending 50% to Miss Witten, and Miss Witten receiving 50% from Mr. Nagel. Can you see that? So just that's sort of like the double entry of the account. So the top one is Mr. Nagel, and he's sending that 50% to Miss Witten, and Miss Witten is receiving 50% of the fees from Mr. Nagel.
So you're basically generating the whole fee and then splitting that way.
The system will automatically do that in the background.
And so if you had done that from Witten's side, would that show up differently, or is it because Nagel is the SC1 that it's always going to show up that way, so it actually didn't matter which
We
way
prefer
it
to
was?
do it from the SC1, from the debtor.
Yep.
So whichever is the debtor. So if Miss Witten is the debtor,
Yep.
or the SC1,
Yep. Right.
whichever way, but you can do
Well,
it from either way.
I suppose what I'm saying is, if there is an error made in processing, the human portion of entry,
Yep.
where we had done that 50% from Witten's side
To Nagel,
to Nagel,
they're not going to see anything other than the 50% charge. All they will see is what they owe. This is in the background.
She'll get her own invoice saying this is
Yeah.
the amount that we're charging you.
Yes.
He'll get his invoice saying this is the amount we're charging you.
Yeah.
It won't be a matter of he's going to get an invoice saying we've charged you the whole amount and then taken off 50%.
Absolutely not. Yeah. So in their history, you'll just see what they have been charged. But the background setup ensures that that is happening. Okay?
Yeah.
So in the normal course of events, you're right, we would have set up Miss Miss Witten as the one that's sending the 50% because she's the SC1. Normally, you'd be doing it that way. But that's, again, that's the detail that we can go through when we've got our live data. So it would be good to have, I'm sure you've got a list somewhere of all of these arrangements. And then when we have it in Synergetic, we have a crystal report that shows you all of those split payment arrangements. Okay, so it will show you what's going on with those families. Now we can also split different categories of fees. So it might be that you have an agreement that it's a 50-50 split for tuition, but mum's going to pay for music. Might be that. Sorry, I think my phone's ringing. Or it might be that, do you have situations where other, like grandma or uncle or whatever, pays for different parts?
We do have a couple of those, but they're not really formalised agreements. We'd like to keep it with the people who are the enrolling parties being the ones who are we are invoicing for fees.
Yeah.
Just in case something goes wrong and we don't have a signature from the other people.
We can put
Yep.
them onto the community though.
Okay.
Like Synergetic, they are linked in.
Yeah. So within Synergetic, you can within cash receipting, you can take money from anyone
Good, yeah.
and pay a fee.
Yeah.
But if you've got an ongoing interaction, it's usually good to have them set up with a constituency. Okay, so it's just about that. So this report, we would set up all of your split families in live, and we will run this report to make sure that it matches your report and make sure that we've got everything set up. But I'd suggest have a go with setting a few up in play, and see what are the challenges, what are the tricky ones. Do the trickiest one, maybe not the trickiest one, but do a couple of
Davis.
straightforward ones. Davis, there you go. What is it with the Davis family? Okay, but we can do the split by child. It is a little bit more complex, and it may be that we can do 90% of the split and then there needs to be an adjustment. But what all of that means is that the statement will show what you want it to show. Okay? And so how we manage all of that, we will go through in live. Probably is the best, because that's one of those, although it's part of your core business, actually how that appears on the statement is something that you'll need to know and think about the best way to do it. Okay? All right. So I'll just get out of this. And I'll just go back to concessions. Concessions then, I'll just bring everyone back to the grid.
Well, can I just ask a question?
Yes.
From my head. So the difference between, so there's also a thing called correspondence.
Yep.
As different from inverted commas and as different from comment.
Yep. So comment will be your notes from Maze.
Yep, correct.
And in Synergetic, we generally use comment for things like, I'll show you what I mean. In comment,
So that's where our notes are.
yep, that's fine.
Yep.
If I move that down a bit, okay, and I might put in a comment of, please call Sarah when this comes in next. Now I can put that comment in there, all right, and the next time that person comes in and we're receipting money, okay, that comment will pop up in the cash receipting space. Okay, so it might be that you've been having the conversation with this parent, you just can't quite get them, but they do come into the school to pay their fees, okay? You want to see them the next time that they come in. You can put a comment in their comment space, and you can say the next time they're coming in and there's a receipting, pop it up on the screen. And so people that are doing the cash, are you at reception when you're doing the cash receipting?
We have a separate area that we
Okay, so depending on your school and the geography that you're talking about, that comment may or may not be of use. Okay, but it will pop up when the cash receipt is put through. Okay, so that's one of the uses of comments. Correspondence, there's my correspondence. Correspondence is all of the correspondence that goes out through Synergetic. So it might be an overdue letter, it might be all sorts of different correspondence. So that's a sort of a, not quite a dumping ground, but it's a way of putting that information in. We also have a drag and drop from Outlook. So depending on your setup here, you can send off an email from Outlook and then you can drag it into Synergetic. So you've got all of that correspondence within the same space, which may or may not be of use to you.
Yeah.
It'll be dependent on your settings you've got. Yeah. Oh, good. Okay. Excellent. So.
But you have to be. That's a drag and drop.
Yep.
Email.
Yep.
You just have to be careful with the right parent.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's in the wrong parent.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Good point. The other space that we have, and you will have spoken about it. Oh, where is it? Where? I want to find DocMan. So I'm just going to find. There we go. Okay. So we've done correspondence. The other space, so we've got data comms, we've got correspondence, and we've got comment. The difference being comment, although it's a big space, mostly we use it for just those little comments. Data comms is where in future you'll be able to capture that those ongoing communications, and then correspondence is where you can drag and drop Outlook. It will record any of those letters or information that goes out to the parents, okay, in communication around debtors.
So your data comms is really your day-to-day, spoke to this person.
It's what
Yeah.
you use in the notes.
Is that okay? So that's good. We've got the different mains. Okay, the other area of documentation then is DocMan. DocMan itself is a facility which is across the whole of Synergetic. So DocMan appears in every single module, all right? And access to DocMan is based on the classification that you give a particular document. So for example, you may choose to have a classification of finance, and then only users that are within the finance security group can have access to that classification. Or if you were, for example, to go with payroll, you might have a classification of payroll for contracts, all of those sorts of things, but then only people that have payroll access will have access to that classification. If you don't have access to that classification, you can't see that document, you can't search for it, you don't know it exists. Okay, so that's the that's the care that needs to be taken when you bring in a document. But any soft copy document you've got, you can bring into DocMan. So when we're talking about purchase orders, for example, if we've got a quote from a supplier, we can bring that to the DocMan, and then in our purchase order we can say, please review the quote under DocMan. So if you've got a split family and they've signed documentation, or if you've got a court order and you've got a requirement to split that family's payments, you can save that court order into DocMan and give it an appropriate classification depending on who needs to see that information.
So the application form, for argument's sake, for a student.
Yep.
Could
No.
be there. No?
Could be in
Could be
DocMan,
online.
but you are going to have online
Yeah,
application
online.
forms.
No
Yep.
more paper application forms.
Well, yeah.
No. No.
For our existing ones?
We can scan them all.
Yeah, just because I'm thinking in the debtor action at the moment, if we have a family that goes to the point of being debt collected, and the access to data,
Okay, so it's important to know the classification. So that's one piece of work to be talking about. The classifications that we have that are in Synergetic as a template, as suggestions, are those in the drop-down list.
Along with this,
No, that's okay.
with so say we've got a split billing family or whatever, and we've
Yep.
got an agreement from them saying they're each going to pay 50%.
Yes.
You would want a copy of that to be easily accessible instead of having to go to the files and do all that sort of stuff, which is great.
Yeah.
So you use DocMan to attach that. Do you attach it one to each, or is this unique? Identify things. If you attach it to one, does the other one know that it's? Or you save it twice? Is that right? You save it. You attach it to him, and you attach it to whoever.
Sorry. I'll need to check that as to where it pops up, but I think you are linking, you are putting it in DocMan, and I think you are linking it to the individual family.
So it would be linked to the.
It would be
linked to the mum and the dad.
So we can
Yeah.
play with that.
Yeah.
You can have a play with that and see how it comes up. Yeah. All right. So that's my.
And sorry.
No,
I'm
good
just
questions.
thinking-
Love it. Go for it.
I'm just thinking, poor Alex, you had to share an office with me for a long time. I do this all the time. Okay, so I have a file full of student family information and stuff. Would I then just be scanning that to DocMan and everything? And so I would have much less need for my physical files for families. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The concept is that we keep as much as possible within Synergetic, depending on the space that you've got allocated to it.
The backups are already bigger than these before we've even added all the documents.
So
There'll have to be a discussion.
You'll have to have a discussion around that. But it's about looking at what groups of documents do we think would be best to go into DocMan, and then how's the best way to do that. But yes.
So it's definitely a cloud discussion.
No, because it is not cloud hosted. It's not cloud discussion. Servers.
Right. So
At the
we
moment.
still don't have the same issue then that we have a copy of you, a copy of him.
No, it's
Mm.
just a matter of working out the best way and whether we need to scan everything on or what documents we're scanning on. And if we are scanning everything on, then making sure the servers
Big enough.
Yeah.
are big enough to cope with it, that's all.
And I guess permissions too, so if I use a document that you also use and someone else uses, would have probably similar permissions to all be able to view that document.
That's right. So there's huge amount of work that the executive are going to have to do for me
Yeah.
to work out the permissions so that I can get everyone on in time.
Hmm.
Because I can't do that on my own.
No.
Hmm.
And it's not just permissions of user roles, it's permissions of DocMan, it's permissions of a whole lot of things that are all linked. So
Yeah.
there's a big job ahead of us.
Okay, so the only other crystal report I just wanted to show you for this little section is the debtors trial balance. So this is a crystal report. I'll just show you how to run it. So crystal reports are on this little green icon here, okay? And when we were inside a module, it will come up, it will assume that we want the crystal reports for that are related to that module. Okay? If there are particular reports that you run on a regular basis, so it might be your automatic payments, say, all right? If I go auto payments, it's going to come up with that list, auto, okay? If that report is something that I want to use and I use it every week, I can save it by adding it to my favourites. Then every time I come into Crystal Reports, it's going to go to my favourites page first. So you don't have to come into that huge list of Crystal Reports. You will, over time, develop those reports that you use all the time. And so if this is one that we would want to use, we click on Add Favourites. When I come into Crystal Reports again, it's going to go to my favourites first. Yep, happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay, but today for this next purpose, we're just going to go to trial balance. And again, this might be something that you look as a favourite, depending on your role. So the trial balance is going to bring through where all of my families are at with their fees, based on the information that's been converted for you. And this is one of those reports that on first day of live, we will be asking for a reconciliation to say, does this balance with your maize data? And asking for sign off before we go ahead. So this is an important report. But it would be good to do a snapshot from maize to see, does it match what you've got in maize? No, when did the conversion happen?
Yeah, I've got the reports from when we did the conversion.
Okay, great. Because it's 6 weeks old and you will have continued to work. So the whole concept of that first morning of live is we will go through those fundamental reports, because they shouldn't have changed in that week when you don't put anything through, and so you can sign off on those reports. But your trial balances are useful.
We can't play until I've done that reconciliation.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it won't.
No, you can't. In live week, you can't do anything.
I mean, if we're doing a check now, and we're putting transactions through,
yeah,
then it won't be the same.
You can do it. Yeah, absolutely. If you're going to, yeah.
And then you start playing.
Yeah. So live is the most important time to do that. But what we're doing, we'll have a break. We'll have a break for morning tea, and I will just stop the recording.